If you're using Kalkwasser on your system, either through your ATO, a Kalkwasser dosing bin, or a Kalk reactor, hang in because today I've got several tips using your Apex that will completely change the way you dose Kalk going forward. Hi guys, Randy here with BRStv's Guide to Mastering Your Neptune Apex controller, where it's all about improving your gear's performance and avoiding all those inevitable reefing issues that happen to nearly everyone. And today, we're talking Kalkwasser dosing and how your Apex can make it more accurate, safe, and stable for your tank. There's 3 dosing approaches I'll show you how to set up today, along with how to implement Apex tools like pH probes, optical sensors, leak detectors, power monitoring, and others that will help safeguard your tank against the most common Kalkwasser dosing issues that reefers face, including a little tip at the end to prevent your Kalk ATO or Kalk dosing reservoir from running dry using a Neptune breakout box and a horizontal float switch. Right up front, these 3 dosing methods are what I would consider to be good, better, and best ways to get the job done, with good being Kalkwasser in your auto top-off. It works well and is the easiest, but it is prone to more potential issues. It is more difficult to accurately dial in a consistent daily dose. Better being a Kalkwasser storage bin with a stable concentration coupled with a dosing pump where you can dose the exact same amount each day. And the best option being a Kalk stirrer and fresh water box to feed it, which can be done in a super small footprint, is easy to adjust, and requires less maintenance or filling. We're going to get into setting up each of these dosing methods individually a bit later, but first we need to solve one of the most potentially catastrophic issues using Kalkwasser, being overdosing. One of the biggest benefits to using Kalk in the first place is to boost the tank pH, but at the same time, it can be detrimental if overdone, which is why it's so critical to catch quickly. So to protect against overdosing, the first thing we want to set up for all 3 are Apex pH alarms, alerts, and actions that will send you an email or notification if something's very wrong, automatically shut down gear which might be causing the pH spike like your ATO or dosing pump, or trigger a loud warning radio or alarm if you're away from your phone, or to wake you up if you're sleeping. First, let's start with that high and low pH alarm using the probe alarm task function. Choose the task, choose your pH probe, set the min and max pH value for when you want to be alerted, which I typically stick to your Apex's recommendation of 7.8 to 8.4, then hit send. Now you'll receive a push notification text or email if higher than normal pH is triggered. But to protect your tank even further, the next thing you'll want to do is to ensure that your Kalk dosing gear is not the issue and having your ATO pump or dosing pump turn off when that pH elevation is triggered. To do that, you just need to add a single line to either your ATO outlet or dosing pump outlet by clicking on their gear icon from the dashboard and adding the line if pH greater than 8.4, then off, either at the bottom or just above any defer line that might already be there. So with this line added in either outlet, you can nearly eliminate the chance that it's this gear continuing to fuel the overdose. And the last part of protecting your tank from that overdose is to add a super loud warning system to prevent you from missing the alerts and notifications, whether you're busy doing something else or if your phone's not near you, or even if you're sleeping. To do this, pick up a loud radio, horn, or even one of these Apex specific alarms like these from Adaptive Reef, plug them into an outlet or the 1-link port on your energy bar, find the outlet and click the gear icon to rename it something like O's Hit Alarm, choose the advanced type for control, make sure the fallback and set are both off, and add in a line that says if pH greater than 8.4, then on. All right, moving on to each of those 3 Kalk dosing approaches individually. Let's start first with the potential issues of dosing Kalkwasser in your auto top-off. We did just set up those overdosing alerts and actions that solves those times where you might have an ATO siphon or your ATO sensor fails and leaves the pump running, but we can also use pH trends to dial in the time of day your ATO runs and help reduce high tank pH during the daytime when your pH is typically high enough already. To change that time of day that your ATO is on, like at night when you typically need that Kalkwasser boost, just add a line at the bottom of your ATO outlet that says if time 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. then on, which you can always come back and adjust based on your own pH trends. But what if the opposite were the issue and your ATO wasn't dosing enough, or it stopped dosing altogether because the pump or sensor failed or the reservoir ran dry? So the short answer to those questions is also related to pH and will likely show up first in a low pH alert or lower than normal pH trends. But there are other triggers we can use to help determine the cause, like maybe a low sump level optical sensor that sends you an alert or notification when your ATO is not working normally and the water level in the sump is getting lower because of evaporation. Adding an optical sensor is very easy to do with a FMM and magnet mounted optical sensor, or by adding an optical sensor to an existing FMM that you might already have set up, like a leak detection kit or a flow monitoring kit. Just mount the sensor in your sump below your ATO sensors and just above your return pump. Plug the sensor into the open port on your FMM. Find the sensor in the unused tiles and pull it down to your dashboard. Click the gear icon and rename it something easy like low sump. And then add a short line to your email outlet that says, if low sump open, then on. And for those of you wondering if you could use a similar optical sensor and email alert for your ATO reservoir to know when it's on the verge of running dry, although the optical sensor will likely hold up in that harsh Kalkwasser solution environment, it's probably not the best option due to the potential for buildup on the optical eye, in which case I'll share a more reliable solution later on with that breakout box and a float switch. So I've got one more tip for you to improve that ATO Kalk dosing and help fine tune it to meet your needs, which is as simple as just following calcium and alkalinity trends and then adjusting your Kalkwasser potency accordingly. So whether you're manually testing and logging calcium and alk tests using the Apex log measurement tool, or if you've got a Neptune Trident testing and monitoring daily, if you notice your calcium and alk trending upward, it probably means that your calc solution's too strong and you need to reduce the potency for the next batch. Or conversely, if you see calcium and alkalinity trending downward, try the opposite and increase the calc saturation next time. Although adjusting potency like that works, it's not the better or best solution. So up next, let's talk about those better and best Kalkwasser dosing options that will both allow you to dose daily amounts more precisely and accurately, one of which takes up less real estate and has much less maintenance. The first of these two dosing approaches is a Kalkwasser reservoir and a dosing pump with a specific daily dose, which if you think about it, is basically like a one-part dosing machine. Setup is extremely simple, using any size reservoir from a 5-gallon bucket to a brute trash can, and a dosing pump capable of adjustable flow rates like the Neptune Dose. So after mixing a large batch of Kalkwasser to full saturation and covering it with a loosely fitting lid, all you need to do is set up your dosing pump using the dose additive dosing task function. Choose your dose, choose your dosing head that's connected to your Kalk bin, rename it something like Kalk Dose. Choose how many mils you want to dose per day and what time of day you'd like to dose it, then hit the send button. In most cases, I recommend spacing your daily dose out as long as possible to avoid large pH spikes or swings, while some reefers might only want to dose at night when pH is typically lower. So we also covered protecting your tank from overdosing Kalkwasser using those pH and alarms and alerts that we set up before. So all we really need to do to make this dosing approach much safer and more reliable is to monitor those calcium and alkalinity levels and then make adjustments to your dose as needed. So if your calcium and alk levels are falling slightly, bump the dose up a few mils at a time and vice versa. You can also fine-tune your Kalk dose using pH, meaning if your pH is climbing too high during the day, try adjusting the doser to only run at night or spread the dose out over a longer period of time. So here's a couple of tips that I've found when dosing Kalkwasser from a large bin and reservoir with a dosing pump. First, mix your Kalk solution thoroughly for about 10 to 20 minutes and test the potency with an electrical conductivity pen like this one from HM Digital. Seal it tightly with a lid, but not airtight, so you don't create a vacuum. Second, let the Kalk slurry settle for about 30 minutes to an hour before starting your dose again. And third, make sure that your dosing line is mounted above the Kalk slurry at the bottom of the bin so you don't dose it to your tank. And fourth, watch your sump level when increasing the Kalk dose to be sure that the amount going in isn't more than the amount your tank evaporates each day. So next we're going to set up that breakout box and float switch I told you about earlier to make sure that we get an alert and email when your Kalkwasser ATO or the Kalk dosing bin are nearly empty and need to be refilled. All you need to do to get the job done is a breakout box and a horizontal float switch like this one that has a silicone O-ring that seals the container. Install your float switch so that it's closed when covered in water and open when exposed to air. Install one of the wires into the ground post on the breakout box and one into the switch number 1 port, which you can always use extending wires if you need to reach further. Now plug your breakout box into your Apex, find the switches in your unused tiles bin, and pull switch 1 down to your Fusion dashboard. Click the gear icon and rename your switch something easy like Kalk Low. Then click the gear icon for your email alerts and add a simple line that says, if Kalk Low open, then on. Now when your switch is open to air, meaning that your bin is empty, you'll get an alert that says fill it back up. All right, now let's talk about what I think is the best Kalkwasser dosing method that not only saves you space, but also requires far less maintenance and typically lasts longer between changes depending on how much you dose. Functionally, a Kalk stirrer setup is the same as a Kalkwasser bin and dosing pump, where you have a max potency Kalk solution and you accurately adjust your tank's dose using a dosing pump. However, here you can accomplish the same thing with a much smaller footprint that usually fits under your stand and does, in many cases, last you twice as long between Kalkwasser changes. To set this up, you'll need a Kalk stirrer like the Avast Marine Kalk stirrer that's designed to continuously but slowly mix 24 hours a day, a dosing pump to push a measured amount of water through the stirrer, and a freshwater reservoir for the dose to draw water from, which we prefer using an ATO reservoir. Using your ATO reservoir as a water source works extremely well for this purpose, especially if you have it set up with a Neptune solenoid and optical sensors to have it auto-refill itself, which you can learn how to do in another Master Your Apex ATO episode we did a while back. So once you've plugged in your Kalk stirrer into one of the outlets, you can rename the outlet accordingly like I did, Kalk Stir. Fill it up with RODI water and add in your Kalkwasser. Then mount and connect the Neptune dose. Connect one dosing line to draw from your ATO reservoir and the other to the input of your Kalk stirrer. Run the dose additive dosing task function just like we did for the last setup, and you're ready to go. Again, we already solved those potentially overdosing issues using pH alarms and actions, but here I would add that if pH greater than 8.4 line to the dosing pump and to the Kalk stirrer outlet. Just make sure your Kalk stirrer fallback is off and set is on, then add the line to the bottom. As for adjusting your dose based on calcium and alkalinity levels, just like we did with the Kalkwasser bin, follow the trends in calcium and alkalinity using your Trident or logging your alkalinity and calcium tests using the Fusion dashboard log. One of the issues reefers face using a Kalk stirrer is keeping up with the potency inside and how to know when it's time to replenish the Kalkwasser. Some Kalk stirrers like the Avast Marine options have a port that you can use for a pH probe, but the better, more accurate testing option is by testing with an electrical conductivity pen. Actually, this is where I would use that other option in the Apex log measurement tool to help you keep track of your electrical conductivity tests. Instead of writing them down each time, just find the other measurement icon, label your test something like Kalk stirrer EC, add in your result, and hit OK. Now you can watch your potency trends over time and get a rhythm of when you typically need to change your Kalkwasser additive, which you should do when the conductivity starts dropping instead of looking for a perfect number. There's another potential issue you might run into using a Kalk stirrer, and that is that the stirring motor won't last forever and will inevitably fail at some point. But you could solve this using power monitoring on that Kalk stirrer outlet to know the moment that it fails. Just find that power usage alarm task function, choose Kalk stirrer outlet, set the min and max wattage draw ranges for alerts, and hit send. It's always best to give your Apex a few days of monitoring the normal wattage on the outlet before running the power monitoring task, and then allow it time to refine those min and max ranges for you so you don't have to blindly guess where to set them. The benefits of power monitoring all of your gear that runs for 24/7 is one feature that really changed the way I use my Apex, which is why I share it on nearly every episode of the Master Your Apex series, especially when it comes to monitoring mission critical gear like your return pump that can make or break your tank if it ever stopped working and you weren't around to catch it in time.